Hello, Lisa Fry, the Catholic Unschooler. Yes, how are you? I am doing pretty good. I'm trying to get as much rest as I can. Getting to bed early, it's a miracle. And I would like to share with you this amazing, this is it, okay? This is it. This is what we need to know. Oh, yes. Have you ever struggled, right? We all struggle. And we don't know how to get through it. Some days you feel like, and sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years, sometimes you struggle most of your life. What I'm doing here is, I want to read to you, so you know when I do the 3 o'clock Divine Mercy Hour, this here is a diary from the nun, Saint Faustina, who Jesus appeared to and gave us the Divine Mercy picture, and he told her to draw it this way. The church investigated it to no end, and well, he did come to an end, and this is official, and they believe her. So it took serious investigation. At first, I do believe they did not believe her, but this is her diary. How fun is this? It's from a saint. So I have to read this to you. It is so phenomenal. A deeper knowledge of God and the terror of the soul. This is page 52. Okay, this is notebook number 1. She says here, in the beginning, God let himself be known as holiness, justice, goodness, that is to say, mercy. The soul does not come to know this all at once. I love that, because we know, well, I'll just keep reading, so exciting. Okay, but piecemeal, in flashes. That is to say, when God draws near. And this does not last for long, because the soul could not bear such light. All right, so we don't receive all that God is because we couldn't stand it. We would faint, we would die, okay? Because he's so magnificent. We can't handle that all at one time. So he gives us little spurts of it. She calls it flashes. During prayer, okay, the soul experiences flashes of this light, which makes it impossible to pray as before. Try as it may to force itself to pray as it did before, all is in vain. It becomes completely impossible for it to continue to pray as it did before it received this light. This light, which has touched the soul, is alive within it, and nothing can either quench or diminish it. This flash of the knowledge of God draws the soul and enkindles its love for him. But this same flash, at the same time, allows the soul to know itself as it is. The soul sees its whole interior in a superior light, and it rises up, alarmed and terrified. Still, it does not remain under the effects of terror, but it begins to purify itself, to humble and abase itself before the Lord. These lights become stronger and more frequent. The more the soul is crystallized, the more these lights penetrate it. However, if the soul has responded faithfully and courageously to these first graces, very important. So you hear that? It's very important. However, if the soul has responded faithfully and courageously to these first graces, bingo, very important, God fills it with his consolations, his comforts, and gives himself to it in a perceptible manner. At certain moments, the soul, as it were, enters into intimacy with God and greatly rejoices in this. It believes that it has already reached the degree of perfection, right? Destined for it. How many times do you ever do that? You're like, oh my gosh, like you're just so zealous for God. You just love him in this moment. And you think, oh my gosh, like I'm completely perfect. I get it. I get everything. I got it. So, because, all right, so it believes that it has already reached the degree of perfection destined for it because its defects and faults are asleep within it. And this makes it think that they no longer exist. Nothing seems difficult for it. It is ready for everything. It begins to plunge itself into God and taste the divine delights. It is carried along by grace and does not take account of the fact that the time of trial and testing may come. And in fact, this state does not last long. Other moments will soon come. I should add here, however, that the soul will respond more faithfully to divine graces if it has a well-informed confessor. So you got to find a priest, right, that you can always talk to whom it can confide everything. Trials sent by God to a soul which is particularly loved by him. Temptations and darkness, Satan. The soul's love for God is still not such as God would have it. The soul, if you hear yelling, it's because they're playing a game. The soul suddenly loses the tangible perception of God's presence. Now the aliens are landing. Oh my gosh. That's my husband's phone. Sorry. Okay. The soul suddenly loses the tangible. So listen, your soul suddenly loses the tangible perception of God's presence. Various defects. Oh, be quiet. There we go. Okay. Various defects and imperfections rise up within it, and it must fight them furiously. Okay. This is the point when, oh my gosh, it feels like all hell is breaking loose. Okay. And you just don't know what to do. So maybe you try to go out dancing for a night and you come home and it's still there the next day. You try to avoid it by, I don't know, maybe you're going to go out and get drunk. But when you're sober, it's still there. Maybe you go to, rotten, horrible things and worse horrible things, and when you're done, it's still there in your face. So various defects and imperfections rise up within it, and it must fight them furiously. How do we do that? All her faults lift up their heads, but the soul's vigilance is great. The former awareness of the presence of God, remember when you're all excited, gives place to coldness and spiritual dryness. The soul has no taste for spiritual exercises. It can't even pray, either in the old way or in the manner in which it had just begun to pray. It struggles this way and that, but can find no satisfaction. God has hidden himself from it, and it can find no consolation, no comfort in creatures. Nor can any of these creatures find a way of consoling it. The soul craves passionately for God. So this is like that whole fighting, and you're miserable and you're anxious and you're depressed and you're like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're just squashed like a bug. The soul craves passionately for God, but sees its own misery. It begins to sense God's justice. It seems to it that it has lost all the gifts that God has given it. Its mind is dimmed, and darkness fills it. Unspeakable torment begins. The soul tries to explain its state to the confessor, but it is not understood and is assailed by an ever greater unrest. Satan begins his work. Faith staggers under the impact. The struggle is fierce. The soul tries hard to cling to God by an act of the will, with God's permission. Remember that, everyone. With God's permission. A lot of people think that Satan is in control. Oh no. With God's permission, Satan goes even further. Hope and love are put to the test. These temptations are terrible. God supports the soul in secret, so to speak. So that's nice. God supports the soul in secret. You think that he can't hear you. Like Jesus on the cross when he says, "Why have you abandoned me?" Well, he obviously didn't. But it feels that way, doesn't it? The soul is not aware of this, that he's hiding and he can see you. But otherwise, it would be impossible to stand firm. Okay, so if God did not have his eye on us, it would be impossible to stand firm. And God knows very well how much he can allow to befall a soul. The soul is tempted to unbelief in respect to revealed truths and insincerity towards the confessor. Satan says to it, "Look, no one understands you. Why speak about all this?" Words that terrify it sound in its ears, and it seems to the soul that it is uttering these against God. It sees what it does not want to see. It hears what it does not want to hear. And oh, it is a terrible thing at times like these not to have an experienced confessor. The soul carries the whole burden alone. However, one should make every effort to find, if it is at all possible, a well-informed confessor. For the soul can collapse under the burden and come to the very edge of the precipice, which is the height of it. All these trials are heavy and difficult. God does not send them to a soul which has not already been admitted to a deeper intimacy with Him and which has not yet tasted the divine delights. I'm going to read that again. God does not send them, these trials and heavy burdens, to them to a soul which has not already been admitted to a deeper intimacy with Him and which has not yet tasted the divine delight. So once you've tasted it, He takes you deeper. Besides, in this, God has His own plans, which for us are impenetrable. God often prepares a soul in this way for His future designs and great works. He wants to try it as pure gold is tried, but this is not yet the end of the testing. There is still the trial of trials, the complete abandonment of the soul by God. And this is exactly what Jesus was experiencing on the cross. And next time we are going to look up complete abandonment, the trial of trials, despair. So, with all of that said, these are the saints. These are the people that made it to heaven. These are the people that are victorious. This is the triumphant. They already did it, okay? And because Jesus gave His church the authority to say, with a lot of investigation, who made it, who didn't. Are there people there that in heaven that we don't know about, that are not canonized as saints according to us? Yes. However, God wants these specific people to be known. And that's beautiful, and that's a miracle and all that. So we want to listen to the people who already made it. That's a great thing. So make sure you keep your eyes on these people and your ears open, because like I said, they already did it. We need to know how they struggled, how they get through it. So if you are at that place, or maybe it's coming for you soon, we're all going through these times, but oftentimes people run. They run away. So they start running away from it. I don't want it. I don't want it. So the thing is, you must, as soon as you sense something awful, this is the time when you must fight furiously and pray. I don't know if you really understand. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. How very, very great it is to pray. Everything magnificent is in our prayers to God. How many times, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you might say, oh, well, my little prayer, it's not going to be good enough to pray for the whole world or for this situation. Or it is. It's wonderful because you're talking to God and it's really Him. It's you coming forth and saying, I'm praying for the whole world. Imagine that, little old you, and little old me, we can pray for the whole entire world. We can pray for everybody that ever lived. We can pray for everybody that's going to come and everybody now. Your voice, I even asked God to please let my prayer ring through all eternity for all of my prayers that I'm praying right now. You see, I want my voice, after I'm gone, I want my voice to ring through this earth for my children. I can pray for my children, even if I go to purgatory. So the thing is, we must fight by holding on. You see, it will get, like it said, terrifying. Okay? It's going to be terrifying. Horrible. You may have experienced that already. Maybe you're going through that right now. Or like I said, it might be coming. Okay? So when it does, the secret is, I remember there was a time that I was going through this. It lasted, I would say, a good 10 years. Heavy, heavy, all the time, heavy. I could not escape it. As the time went on, I learned the art of it. I was getting it. And when I followed my gift that was given to me by praying the rosary, I was shown that I must serve. I must serve. Okay? I had a situation with my husband, and as I wanted to be resentful, when I wanted to be resentful, I would have been doing that my whole life. But that was getting me nowhere. You see? I kept trying different ways. Yet I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to serve. Did I have to like it? Did I have to do it like, with a big smile on my face? I was miserable, but I just had to serve. And every time I'd go back to the rosary, I'd go back to Our Lady, and I'd say, what can I do? And she would never give me another answer. It was serve. This was my job. And I kept running from it because that meant that I had to be vulnerable. Who wants that? I sure didn't. But it's so funny because when we listen to God, when we listen to the heavens, it all works. But it takes a ton of trust. Jesus, I trust in you. Remember the divine mercy. That's where it is. That's where the fighting is. Okay? So instead of running, run to God. There was one day specifically, I was laying in my bed, suffering the agony in the garden. I had a big cross that my son made me. It was a crucifix and a little statue of Jesus on this wooden cross. My husband and my son built it for me. And I just needed, we're not just spiritual. No, we're physical. God made both of it together. So I needed something tangible to hold. And I was laying in my bed, and this cross is big enough, like this big. And I was holding it. And I just needed to feel God tangibly. And all of a sudden, I understood after 10 years. I felt like there was a big sheet of metal pressing my whole body down, you see? And it was like squishing me, and it was heavy. And no matter what, like my heart was aching, my whole body was aching. I didn't know how much more I could take. And then I just all of a sudden realized, I said, God, this is you, isn't it? And then all of a sudden, even though it hurt, I knew that it was him. It was actually his pressure, his certain amount of pressure, but it was not going to squash me. It was not going to kill me because he knows how much to give us, to bring us deeper, right? So I said, this is your hand. Your hand is upon me right now. I got it. And therefore, even though I was suffering, it was at the same time, for the first time in my life, exciting. Because I knew that God's hand was upon me. He only gives us what we can handle. Nothing more. He will not kill you about things like this. Okay? So I was feeling the pressure. So it became easier because I understood that he was there. He was the one making this pain inside of me, right? Not to hurt me. It's like to squeeze all that distrust out of me and to replace it with trust in him. You see, I was laying there in fear and and worry and upsetness and all that.
Is this oregano or basil?
Whenever you have this, it's the oregano. It smells like a pizza. So I knew it was him. And that horribleness turned into such peace because I knew he was for me. He was actually, his hand was on me. It doesn't get any better than that. You see what I mean? So as you reach out to God with his grace, because he's always calling you. We could never do this on our own. He's already. You don't have to say, I'm broken, I'm this, I'm that, I'm not worthy, I can't have this, he'll never come to me, da da da. It's already there. It's like he's going like this. No matter how horrible, no matter what you have done in your life, you could have killed somebody. You could have done the worst sins in the world. And there's always enough grace to bring you home. Do you see what I mean? So, we must receive that grace, trust God, and you have to go through these experiences. You have to, each one of us, our walk with God, our flashes of light are all different. And that's why we need each other, because, you know, maybe you're 2 steps behind what I'm talking about. Maybe you're 2 steps ahead and you're going, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay? But if you're over here with it, maybe you're 2 steps behind. We need each other. People need people. Saint Faustina, right? I'm using her now. So my job is to help you. Okay? So if you are struggling, you can remember all of this. Say, wait a minute. I remember Lisa talking about Saint Faustina. You see? And then you utilize this. Maybe you have to watch this video over and over. Maybe you could get the diary of Saint Faustina and read it yourself. Okay? May God bless you. Remember that God is good all the time. Our job here on this earth is just to get back to him. Period. You can go to college. You can have the finest this, the finest that. Go here, go there. You know, all this here. But the bottom line is, the only reason why we're here on this planet is to get back to God. Period. I'll see you next time. Now go in peace, as the priest says at the end of Mass, to glorify the Lord by your life. Amen.